Okay, hello everybody and welcome to another video. Nothing amazing today. I just realized this was pretty much my one opportunity to record something like this. It's more for posterity than anything else, but there were a few things in last week's patch video that I never really covered. Things that have been added to the game. Hold on, I think our audio is basically completely off. Basically things that had been added to the game I hadn't really talked about and I wanted to touch on. There have been some developer comments as well about certain things to do with the most recent Living World update in the story journal, which is Seeds of Truth. And so I guess we'll start with that. I actually mentioned in the patch video that there was a moment in Seeds of Truth where they mention how 3 of the second-born Sylvari, or newly awakened as they are referred to, have died, while at the same time, none of the Sylvari necessarily know whether Rhiannoc himself is dead or not. Before this patch, we had always understood Rhiannoc to have been the first Sylvari to have died. The firstborn, the first any Sylvari to have experienced death. Before him, the race was very naive, and though, you know, they had had their run-ins with the Asura, for example, Malamides, there wasn't necessarily any understanding of what death was. In particular, there's actually a short story, and the short stories are some of the most emotive, brilliant ways that they describe some of these races, which directly contradicts what we heard in this most recent patch, which was basically that around the time of Malamides being experimented on, Rhiannoc was already dead. And of course, what we learned in this story patch completely went against that. I did theorize a little during that patch video that maybe there was some way ArenaNet could weasel out of it, though it was shoddy writing anyway. You should never be in a position where you want to weasel out of things. And I've got to say, they've impressed me a fair deal here. They very openly made a statement on the forums. I believe it was Bobby Stein, who is one of their most prominent writers there, basically turned around and said, yeah, you know what, this was a bit of a mess up, and we don't want this mess up to be here. So this will be changed in an upcoming patch. They are going to fiddle with the dialogue that we experienced in this most recent patch, and therefore everything we read in those stories is still canon, and this will be rectified. Obviously, it's a bit of a shame. I think with any franchise, something like this is ultimately going to happen. I think they handled it really well. You know, if they actually come out and admit, yeah, this was a bit of a mess up, and they sort it out like that, that's the best possible way they could have done it. Otherwise, the story is just muddy, and this would just be another thing that cuts away at the average player's enthusiasm in the lore. What's the point in reading the short stories if the devs themselves don't know their content? This kind of deal. So that was quite nice, and I was pretty shocked to see that. So that was one bit of news, something we'd really covered before anyway. Let's talk about things that I had missed in the patch, because I do want to have some documentation of these going up. First of all, let's have a look at PvP stuff. So they have changed the PvP UI. A lot of this was talked about in a blog before, but we never really got to experience how it worked. This is how the PvP window works now. You've of course still got the bottom tab, which is your custom arenas tab. I actually had a free time token. I don't know, did you guys get a time token? Where you can set up your own little hotjoin server if you want to test with Gw2, set up your own rules, stuff like that. I still think personally this kind of stuff needs to be expanded on tenfold, the amount of things we can do with our custom arenas to really see that area of the game shine and make that a really interesting part of hotjoin experience. But whatever, that's your bottom tab. You've got the game browser, does still exist, and you can still see all the servers that are here. They should load in a second. Here you go. Plenty of people actually playing it. I've come back to PvP a little bit for this patch. I'm still not overly enthused by it, but it's held my attention at least a little, especially while I'm grinding away achievements, as you can see here. I'm actually working for my 20k box. I'm pretty close, 19,000 achievement points. Apologies for any cut just there. Apparently my client decided to completely crash. Could have been because I was trying to run Sweet FX, combat mode and all kinds of other stuff all at once. So yeah, because I'm doing this, I've been playing a little bit more PvP, and the hotjoin experience is still there. The reward tracks are the same as they've ever been. I've actually been working on the Glorious reward track myself quite a bit recently. And now the home tab, though, looks very different. We still get this cool pie chart. I'm very glad this is still here. Still means a lot to me that this is here. So, you know, you get to see your weighting of different games. You know, I've played 4,100 Elementalist matches, 500 Mesmer, and so forth. And you get these little slices. That's cool. And you can still filter it. So we haven't actually functionally lost anything as far as I can see. It still gives you your lifetime kind of regular stats around here. But up at the top now, we have a few different options. Number one is enter PvP lobby. By hitting this, you'll go straight to the Heart of the Mists. Heart of the Mists has had a slight update now, and it is actually quite significant. Many of the services available in the PvE world have been added up here. So there is a Laurel vendor, there is a TP, and there is a bank. This means that even for those of you who don't want to play PvP, this is actually a big change. This means anywhere you are in Guild Wars 2, you can click the cross swords up here, select go to PvP lobby, and you automatically have access to the bank, to the TP, to a Laurel vendor. Now, one half of me as a player is very excited by this because it's convenient, it stops me having to waypoint around and stuff. The other part of me sort of hates it because it removes a lot more emphasis on the cities, and it's just, it's one of those weird things. I feel like this kind of thing shouldn't be in the game so easily available. You'll notice the Heart of the Mists here is full of people. Are these all necessarily PvPing though? Not really. They're probably just taking advantage of the fact so much awesome stuff is here. Look, all the trainers for skill point books, everything. You know, it's a bad move in my opinion, but something I will be taking advantage of because I'm a bit of a hypocrite, so whatever. So let's go back over to the menu here. By clicking this again, you'll return to exactly where you were before. And now we see what the blog post detailed. You've got practice in custom arenas. By clicking this, you will be taken automatically into a hot join. If you remember on the old browser menu for hot joins, where you had all the servers listed out, which I believe we should still be able to have a look at here. It's always had a button. Where are we looking? Game browsers here. Well, it always used to have a button just called Play Now. It was like hit down here on the bottom left. Basically, that's what Play Now is. Okay, I'm going to click Exit Match here. It will just throw you into, you know, an arena that has a serviceable number of players in it. Maybe it will match you on skill and like their MMR or whatever as it was, which I don't think necessarily it will do that. But that's what that is. That's the Play Now button. Now, instead of solo queue and team queue, we have play unranked and compete in ranked. Very good idea. Now, play unranked is really cool. You click this, it will throw you straight in a queue. You'll get a game almost immediately. I'll have footage of this. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to play a whole game while talking to you guys about the patch. But it goes very quickly. They have a new system in there that you should be seeing where you can actually vote for which map you want to go for. The non-conquest map, Courtyard, just pure team deathmatch, does come up. I have had some interesting games on the deathmatch side of things as well. It is different gameplay, you know, sticking together as a team. It is actually kind of fun, and it will put you in the match very quickly. You have to ready up. There's very little AFKing anymore. The game is still pretty punishing for anyone who quits. I've had very few 4v5s. Some of the matches I've played have been very skewed, you know, 200 points to 500 points or even 500 no's. Those are still around, but not so much. Overall, PvP feels a lot more smooth, a lot more streamlined. That's playing unranked, however. If you want to compete ranked and you want to actually have your place on ladders and stuff, this is almost dead, this playlist right now. It's not totally dead, you can do it, but you might be waiting upwards of 15 minutes, depends on the time of day. Why is it so dead? No one has any reason to do it. Apparently leaderboards aren't even up right now, so there's no reason to compete in ranked right now. Nobody's really doing it. Even when those leaderboards do come up, I have a friend who fiercely believes this, and I believe it too. There should be some kind of in-game representation of what your rank is, what the leaderboards are. There used to be a thing over here that they very quickly took out at launch. Something that shows that prestige off to people. I think it was a bad move when they changed PvP, so it stopped showing your rank at the end of games, though ultimately, because of the way they made Dragon so easy to get in the end anyway, I suppose that doesn't matter. I think these things should be on display for people, and then there's a bit more incentive to do ranked. Of course, they are still talking about their league ideas, which are not implemented just yet, but as it stands, PvP is very smooth, very fun. It's just you basically have to play unranked for now, and while it may look like there's an insane population, as you can see around me here, how many of these are just PvEers using the tools up here? I have no idea, but yeah. So again, once you're done, you can just hit exit and head on out. So what else has changed? The main reason I started this before I crashed down just a second ago in the home instance is because I wanted to talk about some new stuff that they've added to Black Lion chests. And I'm still on the fence. I don't want to commit either way as to how I feel about this. I think that these would be fantastic quest rewards or just things for completing Living World, doing difficult achievements. I can imagine a Guild Wars 2 where there is actual difficult PvE content, and these are, you know, insane, very fun rewards. I'm not satisfied with all this stuff always being a part of the gem store or whatever, but you know, I'm one of these suckers that keeps doing it. As you guys know, for a long time we've been able to buy just straight up on the gem store in the upgrade section, I believe it is. Yeah, here we go. You've been able to buy different things to add nodes to your home instance. until now, they've always been very minor things, you know, very basic ores, copper, silver, and gold, really not that expensive. Even the cloth stuff doesn't really give you amazing things back. If you look over here, there's actually this unique icon. I love the idea of these cloth racks, by the way, like somehow being relevant for like when an expansion comes out. There'll be totally new things you can gather and stuff. But you know, you gather from this and you're still getting very, very low tier mats. It's always not had much impact. Well, now they've added with this patch, not nodes that you buy straight up on the gem store. Instead, now dropping from Black Lion chests, you can have more nodes. And it's like I say, I think this was a great opportunity for them to give us really interesting rewards for different achievements. They didn't go that route. They come from Black Lion chests. And it does mean that Black Lion chests are a bit more exciting to open. The amount of really high expense stuff that can come from Black Lion chests now is quite substantial, but I am not really one for playing the lottery. No matter how much stuff they add to these chests, I'm not feeling myself being pulled to, you know, buy gems and buy keys like that. Maybe it will just make me want to key run a little bit more. But here, as you can see, we can now get lotuses in our home instance, orichalcum, elderwood, omnom berries, or snow truffles. All of these are pretty high tier. The price reflects them. They are low drop rate. They are not very common to find. And so you're going to be spending a lot of money if you want to kit this out. I do think ArenaNet made a bit of a mistake with this, because up until, it's kind of like what they used to do with the minis, where there was the mini collection going on. Up until now, they've had me as a sucker spending my gems every month on kitting out my home instance, because I felt like I was happy, because I felt like my home instance was complete. Now, to be complete, that goal is so unrealistic and wild that I'm no longer incentivized to do that anymore, and I might stop spending gems on my home instance entirely. I think it's a mistake to do it the way that they just did. Though, having said that, more stuff to actually make Black Lion chests interesting rather than just, oh, I got a booster and a die, is a plus in my book. Anyway, that's been a big thing, obviously a big change for the economy, and something to note that I did want to mention. Talking more about gem store stuff, there was, of course, which I did mention, the addition of mail carriers to the game. You can still buy the Griffin mail carrier. I do not believe that this is on a time or anything. This will always be available. And this unlocks the ability for characters in your account to customize the way they send mail to other players. The only thing I really wanted to add to this that I never talked about on the previous video was the fact that if you compose a mail, and I never realized this, you can send the mail to whoever you like. You can actually specify what bird you want to send that mail with. And that's very exciting, because what that means is if I have the Griffin unlocked, it doesn't just change the animation of the Griffin flying away from me, it actually changes the animation of whoever I'm sending it to. So if someone has bought this, they can send me a special, you know, Griffin delivered package, which is really cool. This is a tiny little tweak on the feature that makes it so much more immersive and awesome to me. You have no idea. Very cool. Really excited about seeing what more mail carriers they can add to the game. It's just generally a very cool idea, and I stand by that. And this extra little quirk to it as well, the fact that this Griffin will actually fly after someone else even though they never bought it, is brilliant to me. So yeah, that's pretty much that. There's some other UI changes. I think they're very much worthwhile talking about. The logout screen is now different. I don't know, it's an aesthetic change. I guess it's a nice change. I don't know how much I think of it. I still don't really like the UI in general in Guild Wars 2. I don't like this muddy, icky kind of style that they went for, where they're trying to make it look painterly and gritty at the same time. It doesn't really sit right with me, but this was kind of exciting to see a difference here. The more important one that many people will have been noticing is, of course, the inventory changes, and what has happened here is whenever you get a new item in your inventory, there's now this option which is enabled by default. If you get a new item appear in your inventory, it will glow very bright, and it will let you see exactly what has changed about your inventory. It's a nice quality of life feature. I think it's actually something very common you would find in most games. However, I do think it is a bit too bright, a bit too obtrusive for me, so I actually turned the feature off. And you can't fault ArenaNet for adding it, because they gave you a feature to turn it off as well, which is something I'm very happy about. You may have also noticed a couple of patches ago they made it so that when you double click on something to salvage, you will it will highlight everything just for a moment so you can see what is actually salvageable. They've taken that a step further now, and when you double click, it really very clearly shows in red all the things that cannot be salvaged, and everything that can be salvaged remains the correct color. So here, at a moment's glance, I could see I could salvage this pistol if I wanted, I could salvage this Assassin's Dark Steel sword, I could salvage this pistol, or I could salvage good old Rust Tooth over here. All the other stuff, there's no point in me clicking on with the salvage at all, which of course has always been annoying in this game, because if you accidentally misclick, then you have to go back and double click again. If you've got a full inventory, this actually is a nice convenience feature feature. And little UI things like this, I don't know, they go a long way for me. When they did stuff like changing the icons for a lot of the junk items, stuff like that, it is important. And I'm glad to see that they're still working on that kind of stuff. That's pretty much it that I wanted to talk about. That was the stuff that I'd missed. There are some other things perhaps to mention, like the fact that, yes, 2 pieces of the luminescent set did come out this patch. So if we have a look down here, we've got both the footwear and the leggings to go for. The amount of grinds to complete these is pretty substantial. It could be demonstrating maybe that there's not going to be a patch coming up or an update to the Silver Wastes next patch because of Winter's Day, perhaps. I really have no idea. We'll have to wait until tomorrow to find that out. But it is a lot of grind. You see stuff like this bladder. Oh, wait, hold on. That's not the bladder. Is that the bladder? The bladder was on there. Stuff like the bladders, you actually need 2 bladders to combine together to get the single one, so it is a lot of work. And some people might be complaining about this, but I quite like it. Again, I think they were very smart about the way they've done both Dry Top and the Silver Wastes in the... us players right now and players far off in the future will spend a long time in these maps. They have lots of incentive. They have exclusive stat sets to go for there, and in the case of the Silver Waste, a really cool armor set too. I don't mind this being harder to get or longer to get because it has a weight of accomplishment behind it when you're finally wearing the full set in a couple of months' time, and people can say, damn, yeah, you really spent a long time in the Silver Waste, you did pretty cool, and you look cool for it too. Gw2 has missed stuff like that. So many armor sets just coming in the gem store and so forth. This is nice. This is what we've been missing. This is what I wanted in 15k armor. And overall, I'm still pretty happy with it, even though I've got a lot of progress left to make. Maybe my opinion will change when I'm like a husk of a man in like 5 hours, when I've just been grinding forever and still can't quite do it. But we'll see when we come to it. That's about it, guys. As I say, really just wanted to throw this out there, document some of the changes. Hope you enjoyed. Tomorrow, I will see you for whatever trailer they put out on Tuesday Newsday, and we'll continue from there. Anyway, I hope you have a great night, guys, and I'll catch you next time.